The world is awash with money. We've got lots of easy money, abundant capital.
Is this volatility or is it uncertainty? He's not saying America's retreating from the global order. He's saying America's going to write the new rules of the order.
Could the United States paradoxically be helping China?
It has.
I'm Adrian Saville, Professor in Economics, Finance and Strategy at GIBS. I'm in conversation with Nick Bindell.
Hi, I'm Nick. I'm Professor of Strategy and Leadership and Geopolitics at GIBS.
We're talking about fate, luck and choice, and the conversation today is the world that we find ourselves in. Bad design, bad luck.
Good question. And we're focusing on this year, which I think has been really quite extraordinary.
2025, what a remarkable year.
Yeah, H1. And, there's a great quote, I won't get it exactly right, but decades roll by and then decades happen in weeks. It's felt like that for me this year. There have been some extraordinary things. Why don't you kick off and give us a bit of a view of how you see the global levels of uncertainty?
Well, two things, Nick. The first is just the backdrop. You talk about decades happening in the space of days or weeks. By many measures, the last 18 months, absolutely remarkable, because 2024, as a percentage of world population, more people go to the polls than any year in history. And I mean, that in and of itself is an interesting episode. The however is in 2/3 of those election results, there was a change in political arrangement. So you have a year not only unprecedented, but remarkable outcomes. Mexico, Poland, Botswana, South Africa, government of national unity is formed. The UK goes from Conservative to Labour, and of course the big one at the end of the year. But as we roll into 2025, the change continues, and right now, as we're recording this, Japan has just had a remarkable result where government must rearrange itself. It translates into the global policy index or global policy uncertainty index, now printing at levels that are unprecedented compared to global financial crisis, the COVID period. The uncertainty index is printing at an elevated level compared to that.
I saw the graph, I think, in The Economist just the last few days. Is this volatility or is it uncertainty?
It's uncertainty. And what people are saying is we just don't know what's coming at us.
And why aren't the markets pricing this in?
I mean, that's a great question, Nick, because in the face of uncertainty, you would expect people to now be saying, well, let's be cautious about this, but they're not being cautious about it. They're putting money on the table.
Right.
And
so why that?
Bitcoin, you're seeing it in
absolutely.
S&P 500. You're seeing it in the all-share index going over 100,000.
Exactly. So why? Have you got any ideas about the paradox? I asked the question. So it's a paradox, and I mean the global growth fundamentals are not too bad. Is that correct?
Global growth fundamentals are decent.
And is it a question of bad money change? In other words, there's so much investment capital available that people are looking for investments, and that's supporting the ceiling.
So in one part, I think the world is awash with money. You've got lots of easy money, abundant capital, chasing relatively limited opportunity. But in this, you use the word paradox. Here's the paradox. We find President Trump making his extraordinary pronouncements on policy. The world panics in the early part of this year. March, April, suddenly capital markets reprice all the way down. Dollar has repriced down 10%. But now, as President Trump sort of walks back on these policy ideas, the market response is to say, well, even if it's really bad news, at least we now know what the bad news is. And you've given us 15% tariffs. we can deal with this.
We can adjust.
We can adjust.
So let's separate Trump as an extraordinary political phenomenon. Maybe we'll come back to that. But are you saying all talk, not enough walk? He's not doing what he says he's going to do.
I heard such a lovely, you said you're going to get it wrong. I'm going to get it approximately right. Such a lovely quote from a Russian senator who says, all of the steam has gone to the whistle.
Lovely. What a great line. So let's assume you arguing as an economist that the world can adapt to tariffs.
Sure.
Because it just changes the rules of the game, but we're still playing the game. It may dampen global trade.
Yeah.
I heard the word globalization.
Yeah.
So it may do a bit of that, but we can get by, right?
We can get by. It might be slower growth. In many ways, it might actually be good for some. And there's three goods that immediately spring to mind, or three sums that this might be good for. And quite different examples that the denial or the choking of aid from the United States to Africa, that might be a good thing for many markets in Africa, that they will do better without aid. Dabi Samoya would have a lot to say about this. The second, who could this be good for? Well, it shocks Europe out of a 25-year slumber.
Certainly on defense, I agree.
Yeah.
And generally too, infrastructure out of date, not enough investment, not enough innovation.
And the third,
aging population.
Yeah. And maybe a third example of who could this be good for is, well, if your large market, the world's biggest market, is suddenly unavailable, you're going to have to figure your way
alternatives.
And I'm thinking of Chinese industrial business.
So it kind of resets the trade flows, investment, which I think is fair. What's the bad?
Well, the bad is that, broadly speaking, trade translates into win-win outcomes. Broadly speaking, the movement of people translates into win-win outcomes. The same capital.
Yes.
Yeah, the denial of, we're going to cut you off from our best ideas.
Right.
So that choking of the freer movement of goods, services, people, ideas, that really epitomizes the post-1980s, 1989 to approximately now.
So we can't have this conversation without talking about the big C and China.
Yeah.
I was talking to a friend recently here at GIBS who was explaining he goes to China to work a lot with banks and so on. He says what's happening in China is the Chinese economy has been redirected into the post-industrial services economy, and they're just going flat out for high tech. And the unemployment rate has significantly to do with the drop-off out of industrial jobs into the new service economy jobs. What I'd forgotten, which he reminded me about the dictatorship of China, is that people, if they lose their jobs, have to go back to their province. Yeah. I mean, this is a much more agile, top-down way of running it, which is very stimulating to think about. Have we overplayed democracy, this kind of consensus coalition democracy? And many people I talk to here in South Africa say, democracy, we pay a price because we move much slower. Maybe true. But let's come back to China. Do you think this opens up the door for China to assert itself in the way many people are describing?
In short, yes. And you see this with the rapid emergence of Chinese goods. And, we're not talking about cheap manufacturers. We're talking about
goods of substance,
sophisticated, complex industrial manufactured goods, whether it's smartphones or vehicles.
Xiaomi, what a story.
BYD would be two great cases in point. And some people are talking about the Japanification of China. But remember, on the way to Japan becoming Japanified, you had this edible emergence of Japanese goods onto the global stage.
That was a wave. I remember it really well. Japanese cars pitching up in America.
Yeah.
And products coming here. We had a rude words for them because the quality wasn't good. And 20 years later, we woke up and the quality was better than anybody else.
Yeah.
So that may be a stage of development. Of course, Japan was helped very strategically by the USA.
Yes.
I mean, it's extraordinary that America, after the war, funded the rebuilding of Europe and Japan for strategic reasons.
Well, let's say with your word earlier, paradox, could the United States paradoxically be helping China?
It has.
Yeah.
It's Walmarted it.
Yeah.
I mean, offshoring its manufacturing to China made China's exports. And now they've taken the platform and advanced it. And maybe the junior becomes the senior.
So where does this, now that we're in 25, just over the halfway mark?
Look, these things don't happen that quickly, right? The rise of Japan took 30 years. The rise of China has been going for 30 years. I'm not an American declinist yet, but I'm getting apprehensive about it. You know, the American system, based on this political thing that's happened. I mean, I lived in America for a long time. I never saw this. The kind of language, the behavior the president uses, personalized, ugly, the endless criticism of Biden, the kind of words he uses. His personality, I think, really is unacceptable as a great statesman.
He's a threat to institutions.
He's threatening the media, the courts, the universities, etc. But it's more than that. It's a style of leadership that he personifies. Every president brings their own personality, but his is pretty serious, and it may have long-term implications. But, as you say about the good, I mean, some of the things he's done in America may turn out to be good for the United States. The billions he talks about, his fictitious investment, $1 trillion, the borders being controlled, may turn out to be good. We don't know.
What is it?
Because America's a democracy, and it's now so split. It's extraordinary. It's a 0-1 political economy. There's very little seaweed in the middle. People are either absolutely and viciously determined, vocally, supporting either red or blue. It wasn't like that. So that's one thing. And one of the things that fascinate me is Trump making America great again on its own, or is it becoming a new imperial power in a different form? And his foreign interventions militarily tell us, no, he's not saying America's retreating from the global order. He's saying America's going to write the new rules of the order. And none of us know, because he doesn't talk about China. All he says about China is we've got a very good relationship with China. Actually, China is a mortal threat to America if they are going to compete with each other. If the world becomes bipolar, and you've got the Asian world dominated by China, India, and you've got the Western world dominated by Europe and America, maybe they can live with each other. I've always used the image of an elephant and a whale. They've never met each other. They're the kings of their empire. They don't know of the other one's existence. They get on with life. Maybe it could be that. Wouldn't that be happy days? The scary scenario is that China becomes imperial the way America's been, and seeks to assert itself, and is following an economic diplomacy.
Yeah.
And Trump has declared economic warfare on the world, is what I think the trade story is.
And in what you're talking about, two things spring to mind. The one is...
Sorry, did I say China? I meant America.
You meant America.
Yeah, for sure.
Belt and Road.
Yeah, is the China version.
Yeah.
But trade tariffs is the American version.
Yeah. And in all of this, there is a very quiet, powerful assent of India, which you made a couple of references.
Absolutely.
Now the world's largest population.
Biggest democracy in the world.
Economically still relatively small, but romping along 6-7%.
Hasn't really done the American-Chinese tech innovation.
Yeah.
But it may come, because its people are remarkably educated. I mean, Indian people, Indian culture itself, in my view, is the only culture I know that is left and right brain. German is, one. Africa's different. India has both. It has the finesse, the aesthetic, 5,000 years of civilization, along with being able to do maths.
50 million graduates a year, 1 million engineers graduate.
Both China and America. We have 8,000, by the way. All right.
Well, let's close the conversation then, Nick, so what does this mean for South Africa?
Well, it's a very good question. I've been hosting a few conversations about foreign policy, because South Africa, I don't think, has a very strategic foreign policy. But we say we're non-aligned, but if you're going to be non-aligned, you've got to choose cleverly when you act or who your pals are. Singapore is a very good example. It's friends with everybody. Angola, interestingly, is a good example. It manages to play them off. Egypt did this in the 80s and 90s. It was friendly with the Russians. The Russians brought weapons and money, and then they threw out the Russians. They played the Americans. You can have a non-aligned policy as long as you're really smart and you understand the realities of your economy. I fear that too many of our political leaders don't understand the economic consequences of foreign policy. That may be a factor in South Africa. But it leaves South Africa is to what it's become, in my view, slightly behaving like an island. We're very isolated. We don't have a threatening neighbor. A threatening neighbor, knowing that you're going to play the All Blacks at rugby, does a lot for the motivation of the Springbok team. If you're playing on your own, well, you have a different level of energy.
Nick, that's the halfway mark.
What is the other half? We'll get to it. Well, I mean, just to finish this conversation, it leaves us where we've been, which is low growth, low investment, very few new jobs.
And trapped in a dynamic of poor choice.
Of domestic dynamics, rather than this is what we're going to do for the future. And, we've done so much national dialogue. Many people are opposing this because what is the point of another dialogue? I may have a different view, but that doesn't matter. What it is, we've been talking and talking and talking and talking, and not everybody says not acting enough to deliver. There may be some hidden delivery we're not paying enough attention to, but at the end of the day, I think the balance is we need more action and less talking.
See you in the second half.
See you later.